realized either I was crazy or the world was crazy. And I picked on the world, and of course, I was right. Jack Kerouac. It seems impossible to keep up with the news lately. Assassination attempts, coups, rogue missiles, invasions, threats, sanctions. The list goes on and covers every continent. And everything that happens, every event, is the result of what has come before. History is alive right now in a way that it hasn't been for a very long time. And that makes it even more important to have a good understanding of the spider web of events and people that came first. We may have been taught to use timelines in school, but that linear depiction of history events, it doesn't do history justice. Every action has unintended consequences, some larger than others. But over time, these consequences build up. It's not a history timeline. It's a three-dimensional history web. It's not just a web of events, but also thoughts. There's a current push to deal with the issue of misinformation, for example. Misinformation is and always has been a problem in the world, from the beginning of culture and spoken memory. From Sarajevo to Red Africa believes the best way to deal with misinformation is for people to have the correct information to start with. Of course, one person can't know everything, although I've been accused by family members of believing that I do in the past. However, knowledge is an incredible thing. You may not know the exact information needed right off the bat, but instead, something related. The Crimean War is not the American Civil War, but it gives a very general understanding of many aspects of war. To use an analogy, if you know how to make sourdough bread, you can spot things that may be incorrect in a recipe for rye bread. Doesn't mean they are incorrect, but it does mean that you can narrow your attention into the problem area to dig deeper into what the truth really is. Your base of knowledge may not be specific to the issue at hand, but it's enough to give you a direction from which to start the search for the truth and an idea of where to look for the truth. This is the power of knowledge, all knowledge, in combating misinformation. Knowledge, correct knowledge, is power. And that knowledge starts long before specific events ever happen. Unfortunately, the tendency to not understand how much we personally don't know plays into the misinformation gap as well. The Crimean War of 1853 is not World War I. It's not World War II. It's not any of the current conflicts in progress in the world. Experts are absolutely vital to provide the nuance of any situation. But again, we hit upon yet another issue in misinformation. Sometimes some experts are putting out the misinformation in the first place. In today's world, this has become a familiar scenario as well, and it creates a domino effect of distrust, hardening of opinion, and outright hostility. Without trustworthy sources, some people may retreat into groups that present a truth as they wish it to be, rather than the truth as it is. This voluntary submission to information, misinformation, is as much a problem as the misinformation itself. An attempt to solve for X starting with the wrong numbers will never get the correct answer. And the more numbers introduced into the equation pushes the answers further and further and further from the truth. It seems we're rather far down this path already, but what can we do to fix this? The first thing we can do is understand that fixing this problem won't be easy. Misinformation is not actually one problem. It's multiple problems wearing the same jacket. Problem number one, many don't have the knowledge base that would enable them to spot inconsistencies in statements. Problem number 2, there are experts and people who present themselves as experts who are actively contributing to the problem of misinformation, which creates a distrust of all experts, leading to problem number 3. Many retreat from the problems of rampant misinformation and untrustworthy experts by choosing a narrative that matches what they wish to be true rather than what is. Problem 4, heavy-handed attacks on misinformation have often enough, in the interest of simplicity, perpetuated other misinformation, leading to distrust in watchdog organizations. And problem number 5, no information about anything happening in the world is simple. History is not simple, and everything is subject to change. And maybe it's problem number 5 that's the last straw on the camel's back. It's hard to adjust to new thinking when information becomes available. What if the new information is not really good information? The old information has worked well enough until now. And what if you have already adjusted to new information, but it turns out the new information is actually bad information? How on earth can anything be trusted at that point? From Sarajevo to Red Africa works to fill a gap in the knowledge base, the often overlooked third world. Overlooking this area, an area of far more importance than it is given credit for, is responsible for quite an astounding amount of misinformation circulating today. After all, as a certain Bosnian author once said, the history of the 20th century lies between 2 bridges and Sarajevo. It's the truth, but it's a truth many can't explain or locate on a map. And so, welcome to our 2nd season of podcasts and YouTube series. Our Real Third World podcast will feature the history of the Third World in World War II. Events that can be traced in a direct line as causes of upheaval in the world today. Our History She Wrote series will be tracing current events in the Third World back to World War II as well, showing how absolutely vital it is to understand the issues behind today's issues. And our Aristea Goes Everywhere children's series will continue to focus on lesser-known women who were giants of history and emphasizing the geography of the world in a much easier to understand format for kids. In addition, we're working on a fictionalized series that introduces viewers to the various cultures of the Slavic world, and another nonfiction series bringing viewers to the end of histories encapsulated in the world's cemeteries. We also have an entirely new type of travel book in development, beginning with Bosnia and Herzegovina. And finally, we hope to have the first 2 episodes of our series on the history of Poland, called Centuries, finished by the end of December. Please stay tuned for our trailer on this one. The issue of misinformation, as with everything we cover, is so much larger and more complex than anything we can condense into a 20-minute show or podcast. So please don't merely take our word for it, but use it as a jumping off point to learn more. As always, please read more. Go back further in history. And it is so important to make sure you're familiar with the world map. We're also fantastically glad to see you all again.